There have been countless athletes throughout history that have spoken out against America's inherent inequalities. Athletes play a major role in communicating to the masses what is going on off the stage and are able to use their platform to make a difference. The ignorant people who make the remarks, "stick to sports," or "shut up and dribble," seem to forget that freedom of speech applies to everyone, including celebrity athletes. They pay taxes just like us, live in the same cities as we do, and vote for the same candidates. Welcome back to our channel, and today we'll be focusing on the top 10 most political athletes. This list is a tricky one because we cover a wide range of decades, leaving out countless others since there are only 10 slots. But there's no denying that these athletes mentioned have left a big impact on politics. So, let's begin. Number 10. Arthur Ashe. Many people today think of Venus or Serena Williams when you say tennis, but Arthur Ashe is the only black man ever to win the singles title at Wimbledon, the US Open, and the Australian Open. He won his first ever singles title in the 1968 US Open, the year Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. Over the next 25 years, he worked tirelessly as an advocate for civil and human rights, a role model for athletes interested in more than fame and fortune. Ashe even went as far as getting arrested for protesting apartheid at the South African Embassy in 1985. And he also championed AIDS awareness in the 1980s, up until it claimed his life in 1993. He contracted the disease from a blood transfusion he received during heart bypass surgery in the 1980s. Ashe was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1993 and is widely revered as one of the classiest, most humble humans to ever step onto an athletic field. Number 9. LeBron James. It's difficult to properly compare the modern athletes on this list with the titans from the civil rights era, but LeBron is probably as close as our current era gets to a Bill Russell type, a superstar working for political change at the peak of his career. After one of America's school shootings and an infant was killed in Cleveland the same weekend, James called for stricter gun control. He has spoken out against systemic racism after every single high-profile police killing. His political voice sets him aside from other great athletes like your Michael Jordans or Tiger Woods. LeBron has even opened up a school back in his hometown. This guy continues to fascinate us and become more and more political the further he gets away from his basketball prime. Number 8. Colin Kaepernick. At his peak, Colin Kaepernick was perhaps the number one asset in the NFL. He was a starting caliber QB in the NFL, even in his last season in 2017, when he finished only behind Tom Brady in touchdown to interception ratio. Given that, due to his decision to fight against police brutality and kneel during the national anthem, no NFL team would add him to their roster. He has become an icon in American culture and a new political athlete the younger generation has come to admire. Number 7. Jim Brown. Brown may be the greatest football player of all time, and while he trampled over the NFL, he spent much of his time investing in the black communities left behind by America. A few years after being the number 1 overall pick, he joined Muhammad Ali, KAREEM Abdul-Jabbar, and Bill Russell at the famous Cleveland Summit to found the Black Economic Union. He was one of the first athletes to vociferously speak out during the civil rights era. Number 6. Pat Tillman. No one on this list has had their life more distorted by the American propaganda complex more than the former NFL free safety killed in action in Afghanistan in 2004. In his display of patriotism, months after the September 11th attacks, he turned down a $3.6 million contract to enlist in the Army. An investigation by the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command found that he was killed by friendly fire and not in battle, despite the try to cover up the story. Now that we've arrived to the top 5, make sure to stay until the end to find out who made number 1 on our list. Make sure to leave a comment with your favorite political athlete and why. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, or I'll personally tackle you. Number 5. Craig Hodges. A lot of you probably watched the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance, but they didn't seem to mention this guy who made number 5 on our list, Craig Hodges. For those of you that don't know, Hodges came into the NBA in 1982 and carved out a 12-year career, becoming one of the better shooters in a sport entirely dependent on shooting a ball into a hoop. Hodges played on Jordan's first 2 title teams, shooting 94% and 96% from the line both years. The all-time career record free throw holder is Steve Nash at 90%, and Hodges never played in the NBA again. Why? The same fate that befell Kaepernick hit Hodges a quarter century prior. Hodges tried to organize a boycott of Game 1 of the NBA Finals over the lack of black owners and executives. And after the Bulls won the title, Hodges went to the White House in a dashiki and delivered an 8-page letter to George H.W. Bush. Number 4. KAREEM Abdul-Jabbar. It's astonishing how often KAREEM gets left out of greatest player ever conversations, as well as greatest sports activist ever, especially since he was heavily involved in his activism during the peak of his career. He played 20 years in the NBA, making 19 All-Star teams, and retiring as the all-time leader in points, games and minutes played, made field goals, blocked shots, defensive rebounds, and career wins. In 1973, after all this dominance, he converted to Islam and changed his name to KAREEM Abdul-Jabbar. Abdul-Jabbar boycotted the 1968 Olympics, took part in protests, created his own foundation, as well as a long list of other contributions. Number 3. Bill Russell. Russell is one of the most outspoken leaders the sports world has ever seen. If you ever watched NBA Finals on TV, you probably witnessed some of your favorite All-Stars hugging or shaking hands with an old black man with glasses and a bushy white goatee. That man, whom the Finals MVP is named after, is a walking monument to the morality and social activism embedded in the NBA's DNA. Not only was Russell one of his generation's foremost civil rights leaders in the entire sports landscape, but he was a major hero to the labor fight in America. The 1964 NBA All-Star Game is probably the most consequential All-Star Game in American sports history, as Russell led the players in threatening to strike and not play the game unless the owners recognized their union. Being the first televised All-Star Game, the owners caved, the game was played, and Russell helped usher in the era of player movement and free agency that we experience today. Also, in 2010, he was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom by the President of the United States himself. Number 2. Jackie Robinson. Everyone knows Jackie Robinson for breaking down the color barrier in Major League Baseball in 1947, but he was so much more than that. After becoming the first UCLA athlete ever to earn varsity letters in 4 sports, baseball, football, track, and basketball, he was drafted into the U.S. Army. 5 years before he would become MLB's first black player, since the 1880s, when many black players were initially welcomed into the young league, he fought to desegregate the officer candidate school in the Army. While his application was suspiciously delayed, he received the help of heavyweight boxing champion Joe Louis to get his application finalized, and Robinson was eventually commissioned as a second lieutenant in 1943. Athletes like Jackie Robinson become something more to the sport solely because of the uniquely American evil they have no choice but to fight back against or surrender to. Number 1. Muhammad Ali. Everywhere you turn in the world of sports, in seemingly every league, in amateur, college, and professional ranks, you find athletes carrying the banner of some sort of political protest. But it started with this man, who made #1 on our list, Muhammad Ali. In the year of 1964, not only did he hold the belt for heavyweight champion of the world, he also joined the Nation of Islam through his good friend, Malcolm X. This helped contribute to Ali's willingness to publicly take an unpopular political stance, much different from some of the groundbreaking African American athletes that preceded him and followed. He stood on his principles and refused induction into the US Army in 1967, citing his religious beliefs and opposition to the Vietnam War. He even had to spend 3.5 years in prison while being stripped of his title and being banned from boxing, which was his profession. Well, what did you think of our top 10 political athletes? Let us know any athletes that you would have put on your top 10. Also, don't forget to give our video a like, share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more great content like today. We hope you enjoyed our video, and we'll see you next time.